An article is a word that adds definiteness or indefiniteness to a noun. Modern English has two articles, the indefinite article a, which is sometimes spelled and as well as the definite article the. The primary function of the article in English is to specify. If I asked you, can you give me a book? You could probably grab any book and give it to me. This is because the indefinite article a communicates that I'm not looking for a particular one, so any will do. But if I said, can you give me the book? You'd know that I was looking for a specific book in mind. Greek does not have an indefinite article. It only has one article. The Greek article and the English article do not work in the exact same way. So here's the visual filter I put together for highlighting the Greek article. And I'm not looking at a particular case, whether it's nominative or accusative. I just want to look at the article in general. And let's see now what this does when we look at the ESV. You'll notice here the words that are boxed. Some of them are a definite article, like the, and some of them are nouns. The boxing indicates where the Greek article is underneath these English words. But notice over here that there's an English definite article, but it's not boxed. That's because if we look at the interlinear here and select the English words Holy Spirit, we'll see that in English we provide the definite article here, when actually in Greek it doesn't have the article. So here in English the article is supplied, but over here, say for example the word days, the Greek article is here, but in English we don't translate that. Otherwise it would be during those the days, which wouldn't make sense. In these next series of videos, I'll show you the different uses of the Greek article. The Greek article inflects based on case, number, and gender. Here is a paradigm chart for the article out of Learn to Read New Testament Greek by David Allen Black. And you can see how the article is inflected here. Number, singular and plural, grammatical gender, masculine, feminine, and neuter, as well as case, nominative, genitive, dative, and accusative. All in all, 24 forms of the article. Let's see what these look like in a verse. Here in Matthew 3:2, we can see that sometimes the article is expressed in English and sometimes it's not. For example, under heaven, there is a Greek article underneath this English word. And you'll notice here, the word kingdom is in the nominative, singular, feminine. And notice that the article that modifies it matches nominative, singular, and feminine. It's the same over here with uranon, which is translated heaven, genitive, plural, masculine, and the article matches genitive, plural, masculine. So even though these forms here are different in the manuscript line, he and tone, we have the same lemma form, ha, in both cases. An article may be used as a pronoun, that is, as a word that stands in place of a noun. This includes personal, relative, and possessive pronouns. Here in Colossians 3:18, we have an example of the Greek article being used as a possessive pronoun. And you can see this reflected in the English translation here. Here we have a possessive pronoun boxed, but if we look at underneath, the reverse interlinear pane shows us that a Greek article is being used here. And this is an example of why we can't be truly literal in our translations into English. And by literal, what I mean is taking the most common meaning of a word and applying that everywhere. For example, the most common meaning of the Greek article might be the. Well, we can't apply that everywhere because it wouldn't make sense in English. Now here in this verse and the couple verses that follow, the Greek article is translated by a possessive pronoun because the relationships here between husbands and wives, and children and parents, these are all familial types of relationships. The kind of relationship that expresses belonging or possession, but not in the strictest sense of ownership. The article may be used to turn another part of speech into a noun. Here are a few illustrations. The articles in this verse turn the adjectives into substantives. So here, underneath the word poor, we have this Greek adjective, ptoukon. And notice that because it's an adjective, the ESV supplies the word man here to this adjective. And part of the reason for this is the presence of the Greek article here, ton, which in effect substantizes this adjective here. That is, it turns it into a noun. And it's the same thing over here in this sentence. According to the morphology here, we have an adjective, but because of the presence of the article included here, this adjective has now been turned into a noun. Let's take a look at another illustration. Here in Matthew 6:13 is an example where an adjective is made a substantive by the presence of the article. Now, we don't see this in English because the article isn't translated here, and we don't have another word supplied like one or man or anything like that. But when we turn on the visual filter and we see this, we can look down here at the reverse interlinear and see that to, which is the inflected form of ha here, the Greek article, to panerou, is translated evil. Now, the reason why this is significant is because in reading this, it's possible to read this as sort of a lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil in the sense of an absence of problems or an absence of suffering. And so it's possible to misunderstand life in the kingdom as life free of problems and suffering. But here, the article makes this adjective, panerou, a noun. In other words, it could be translated the evil one. Now, if we look down at our Lounaida number here, we can see that panerou, this adjective, can actually be a title for the devil, literally the evil one, the one who is essentially evil or, in a sense, personifies evil. So do you see the difference the presence of the article makes? It's not just deliverance from evil in general, it's deliverance from the evil one. And we can see this also in the text comparison between the different translations. The ESV taking it in a general sense, and the NRSV taking it as the evil one, and all the way down. And this is really the value of the text comparison tool, because even without consulting the Greek or looking for articles or turning on visual filters, you can see if there's a point of disagreement among the translations that might show you where to start digging and what tools to start using. The article may be used to particularize. That is, it can point out a particular object or distinguish one object from similar ones. In the previous illustrations, we looked at how the Greek article can turn another part of speech, like an adjective, into a noun. And here in this context, the article, because it's working with another noun and not an adjective, it has the function or use of distinguishing that noun from similar ones. So here in this verse, John 19:5, Jesus is brought out, and Pilate presents him before the chief priests and officers and says, "Behold the man." And the article here is indicating that it's not just "behold a man" or any man. It's identifying Jesus as the man the Jewish leaders brought to Pilate. Another way of saying this, it's almost as though Pilate were to say, "Behold the man," and then in parentheses, "you brought to me for judgment." This particularizing function of the Greek article is really common. And so the question you want to ask when a noun is being modified by an article is this noun being distinguished in any way from another noun? And so to answer that question, you'll have to look at the broader context. In Acts 5:42, we have two Greek articles here indicated by the visual filters. Verse 42 reads, "And every day in the temple and from house to house, they," meaning the apostles, "did not cease teaching and preaching Jesus as the Christ." And in this context, I would say it distinguishes Jesus as the Christ from other Christs. Now, the reason why I say that is because of the context here. And if we were to go to verse 36, and here in verse 36, a religious leader, Jewish religious leader named Gamaliel, says this, "For before these days, Theudas rose up claiming to be somebody, and a number of men, about 400, joined him." Now, if we were to double-click on this English word here, if we have our dictionary set up, we'd find that Theudas, an impostor, possibly a messianic pretender, who sometime before AD 6 gathered a band of 400 men, but was killed and his followers dispersed. So Theudas was a false Christ or false Messiah. And now, going back to the ESV, and going back to our verse that we were looking at initially, 542, we can see that the article here doesn't just point Jesus out. The use of the article here in Greek distinguishes him as the Christ from others who claim to be Christ.